Today we're talking about how to address the golf ball when hitting an iron. I'm PGA teaching professional Todd Kolb, and one of the easiest ways to improve your iron play is to have a consistent setup. And in order to have a consistent setup, you gotta have a template. You gotta have a way that you can practice it and guarantee that you're in the same spot every single time. And that's what I'm gonna give you here today. I'm gonna give you a template, a way that you can guarantee that you are addressing the golf ball the same way every single time when it comes to your iron. So today when I'm working on my template here, I'm working on my setup, I like to use my live view because it's probably far the best device when it comes to creating a nice template. So here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna basically stand nice and tall and you're gonna get your feet about shoulder width apart. And what you're gonna do is put a couple lines down just outside the hips. Now I've done that already. I've already got my template because it's the same template. I use it every single time. Once I've got it set up, I can do it every time I practice. What I did here is I took my setup, stood nice and tall, and I put a couple blue lines just on the outside of my hips. I took a yellow line and put it right down the center. Now this allows me a reference point every time I get set up. So once I've got that in place, all right, now it's pretty simple. What you're gonna do is you're gonna position the ball, basically so it's right below the yellow line, and you're gonna put your feet together. Okay, notice I got my feet together, the ball's right below the yellow line. I'm gonna separate my lead foot so it goes over that blue line, separate my trail foot so it goes over that blue line. That's how I can guarantee that my stance is the same width every single time. Now, as you know, that stance width is about shoulder width. That's a really good reference point for like a 6-iron, kind of a mid-iron. Now when you're hitting a driver, it's going to be a little wider. Maybe when you're hitting your wedge, it's a little bit shorter. But that reference point of stance width about the same width of your hips is a really good way to do that. There's also a couple things you want to be aware of in terms of your setup and how to address the ball with your iron other than just your stance width. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the hips. Let's talk about the upper body. So you know the process here already. Feet together. Okay, a little separate. That's your stance width. Now what I want you to do is I want you to take your hips and just bump them a little bit forward. So you got a little bit more weight on your lead foot. And when I do that, notice that my lead hip goes right over that blue line and my trail hip comes just slightly inside that. Okay, this positions my lower body. I've got my stance width. I've got the ball in the right spot, and I've got my hips positioned. Now the next thing we want to talk about in that setup, how to address the golf ball, is the upper body. How should the upper body be set? Well, you know the process already. Feet together, step and step, bump the hip a little bit. Now with your upper body, you want that yellow line, basically where the ball is at, to be just ever so slightly in front of center. So basically, it's right off my left eye, my lead eye. Okay, but just in front of the zippers on my jacket right here. That's where I want that to be in terms of positioning so I know my upper body is in the right spot. Okay? Now the last tip I want to give you here in this setup, and then we're going to be complete, is where should we position the hands? Another key component. So here we go. Let's go through the process. Feet together. Separate, so I'm shoulder width. Bump the hip a little bit. Okay? Ball right there. Lead eye over that line. I want to make sure my hands are just ever so slightly in front of the ball when I'm hitting that mid-iron. And now from this position, I can go ahead and just swing and hit a shot. So when you address the golf ball with an iron, you got to be consistent every single time. Having a reference point, having a template can allow you to do that. And if you do that, you're going to see consistency improve with those irons.